Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be going over the bleeding blitz that is occurring today actually. So in this never before seen blitz war, we are going to be experiencing a new map to play on as well as 5 new strongholds, but they're all the same. All of these strongholds will give 325 bleed to the enemy when attacking, so that's the defensive team. Bleed, as we know, can stack, meaning if you have all 5 towers, you can apply 1,625 bleed. Now, although it doesn't tell us how many turns this bleed stays for, I think we can safely assume that it's 2 or 3 turns. That seems to be the standard, and I believe that's what it was in beta. I'm happy to see that the towers are not exactly what they were in beta regarding bleed. The bleed towers in the beta region were 1,000 bleed each, and that was just an insane amount. Can you imagine if holding 5 towers gave you 5,000 bleed to the enemy? I think 325 bleed is a fair number, and it's very easy to stack it as well as manipulate it. Another very interesting point for this war is that it's not only 6v6 because it's blitz, but you can now find people or teams, factions, from your own region and match them. Now, this could be a little worrisome for some people, and I hope that it's only for blitz wars, because if you end up matching your own region, especially near the end of war, you could just end up point feeding each other. Like I've mentioned this before, that this can happen in any circumstance. It doesn't have to be people from the same region, but I guess it's people's general assumption that if you're down the line, if it's at the very end, and you could help out someone in your region so that they would score 3rd instead of 4th, you'd probably do it. Again, there's nothing deterring other factions from doing that if you couldn't match people in your own region, so it's hard to really comment on that, I guess. Anyways, some of the other different points for this blitz. So, although mercenaries are not available for this war, we are seeing the new map, we're seeing inter-regional matchups, we're seeing 5 strongholds that do bleed damage, which we've never seen before. And then the 2 big points to me, well, the biggest point is the cooldown time for attacking has been reduced to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, same as for taking strongholds. So it means you have to be more aware of strongholds because they'll come up faster, maybe not in this specific war, but in future wars. And then also not being on a cooldown timer will mean players can score a lot faster. So beware, because matches can go by in a flash now. We will also be seeing updated spoils of war crates in these coming wars. We're also going to see updated rewards, and that to me is exciting. We're finally getting some pretty decent rewards, even just over a blitz war. So I'm looking forward to that myself. They have reduced the milestones from 150,000 for the max milestone in this blitz because it's a 24-hour blitz. It used to be 150,000 and now it's 100,000, and I don't mind that just because I know how busy people can get, and they want to make it fair so everyone has the opportunity to score 100,000 points. So personally, I'm kind of looking forward to this blitz. We haven't had a war in a while, or at least it feels that way. The updated rewards is a nice touch. The war token pulls will be nice from the stash, just because it's something that can be repeated. So there's some new war milestones that you can do over the next 6 weeks, which I think will help encourage people to play a bit more. I think that all of this is really positive. These stronghold towers, I'm still a little unsure of, and it's just because I don't know how it's going to function yet. We don't know how it's going to function yet. Even when it was in beta, there wasn't a lot of positive reviews from what I heard. And specifically with the bleed towers in beta. The bleed towers had no issue stacking with each other, but for some reason they were not stacking with Relito's leadership skill. So just be aware that it might not work in war this weekend. Now, what I'm expecting for some free-to-play defensive teams, I think we're going to be seeing Mercer leads, Frost maybe, Sheila because she was a free tune recently, Angel, Princess, so just this type of general build because of these bleed towers, and people might be worried about them because if the enemy gets all 5 towers, that's 1,625 bleed for the first 2 or 3 turns, which can be easily stacked. On its own, 1,625 times 2 would be 3,250, or if it's a 3-turn duration, then it's 4,875. That's a lot of bleed, especially when we think of how it accumulates together. So we can easily run like a lacerator against this type of team and try to bleed out the enemy. But what I like about this team is that Mercer does have an active skill that can recover bleed, burn, and as well as maim from everyone on his team when his active skill is maxed out. I know for the longest time we said don't max out his active skill because it's pretty useless. Now, I am on the fence about maxing out this active skill because we don't know if these bleed towers are going to stay. So it could be a waste to level up this active skill and have him use it at the start of every single match. Another tune that you can think about using on defense is a Rov. A lot of people run fast rushing defensive teams, so running a Rov on defense might be a decent choice because his active skill can also help recover from bleed. Now, the main problem I can see with running Mercer and a Rov on defense is that both these tunes are very easy to trigger against payback tunes. So if someone runs payback on attack, you're basically nuking your own team. But fear not, there are some alternatives to help you kind of combat these bleed towers, if you care, that is, because, it takes about 45 seconds to take a tower. You could end up finishing 2 or 3 hits in that time, depending on how fast you are. And yes, I said 2 or 3 hits. One method is a simple method, and it's just adding a bleed resist mod to your defensive team. Bleed resist can be really effective because if your team doesn't start off bleeding, well, if someone runs a bleeding laceration team on attack, it's less effective, at least in my opinion. And with Georgia in particular, because I gave her this specific type of weapon, even if she does end up with bleed on the first turn, bleed is considered a debuff, and that way she's actually healing 10% every turn that she has bleed, as well as 10% more for every other status effect that she has. So this is another type of weapon that I would recommend using. The 4th slot is really, really useful. And I would also focus on giving your defensive team HP set mods because bleed eats away at a tune's HP directly. Another type of weapon that you could use is this type of weapon with the 4th slot in particular, where it reduces damage over time effects by 20%, and bleed is a damage over time effect, so you could reduce some of that bleed damage just a little bit. I'm not saying it would be enough to save you. In some cases it would, some cases it wouldn't, but it's just an idea of a type of weapon that you could use, and that 4th slot can be crafted on any tune, I believe. Now, this last weapon, it's a little bit different. The fast healing doesn't solve the bleed, but it does offer you the chance to heal your tunes as you continue to bleed out. There's also a number of ways to stop bleed. Some tunes rush and recover bleed. We already looked at Mercer and Arav and their active skills. You could just wait it out. It is 3 turns, and you don't really expect the opponent to have all 5 towers. And now when we flip the switch, we can take a look at an offensive bleed team that would be fairly effective. So I don't know if Rolito lead is going to stack with the towers. If it does, it means you would have 2250 bleed to start. If you had the increased bleed damage by 150, then it would be 2400 bleed to start. What makes this team to be really good is that Jason is now available for the people who have successfully gotten to Platinum 3. And I'm not saying everyone has, I'm just giving you guys an example. So in this case, let's say we have 2400 bleed on all enemy tunes, then we use Jason's active skill, which adds 1200, so we have 3600 bleed. He also will increase that by 150 because if we have a weapon that increases all bleed damage by 150, then it's 3750. We can attack with Pete, and if he has pain spread, we're spreading that 3750 to a tune that has the 2600 or 2400 already. We can pain spread again with Rolito, and then of course we can lacerate with Zhai Fang. But what makes Zhai Fang to be so effective is that when she attacks and the enemy has more than 50% HP, I think, she adds 500 bleed on top of that. So what's great about laceration and pain spread as a combination is that pain spread will spread whatever bleed or whatever status effect is on the opponent's tune to an adjacent target. And this can be done a number of times. This is not a only one time per turn like laceration is. So like my one Jai Fang can lacerate tune A, but Jai Fang B cannot lacerate tune A on the same turn. She can lacerate a different tune, and in some cases it's more advisable to on a pain spread team because you're stacking bleed very quickly. This type of team is a very weapon intensive team, so I don't expect really anyone to have it, but it's just to give you an idea of how you can utilize some fairly okay-ish tunes that would, in this case, work really well with the towers. Now, of course, you have to wait for the towers to be taken, and in that time, you could just end up normally attacking. Like with the shorter cooldown times and stuff, I would definitely recommend attacking quickly because the faster you attack, the faster you can move on to the next person and finish the circle and your rounds. So I'm okay. I'm kind of excited about the towers. I think it's going to be a pretty unique war, but I don't want towers to be something that rules over the whole game. I would rather play based off of skill than off of whoever has the towers is going to win. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video.